and welcome to yet another video. In this one I'm going to be making a classic chocolate drip cake covered in chocolatey treats, a little bit of gold, just to add a little bit of extra. I'm going to show you how I make the sponge, make the ganache that I'm going to put on the inside, how I do the drip, and I'm also going to show you how I do the chocolate shards and the decoration towards the end. So right now we're doing the sponge. Now I have done this before on this channel. It's my go-to chocolate fudge cake recipe. It's essentially the cake that I'm doing today. I needed enough for 3 7-inch rounds, and I also needed enough for 4 5-inch rounds. So I actually did 1.5 of this recipe. So the amounts that you're seeing on screen are a little bit inflated, but if I needed to fill just the 7-inch tins, I would probably just do just the regular recipe. That would also work for, you know, your 8-inch tins. It fits 2 9-inch tins, and if you half the recipe, it fits 4 6s. So it's a very versatile recipe. I use it all the time. I love it because it's oil based, so I can keep some vegetable oil on hand and use that instead of butter all the time. Keeps it moist. It's a lovely, delicious cake, and pairing it with some ganache is honestly delicious. Whoever invented ganache, no idea, probably the French. Bloody good job. So as you can see, I've added all my dries together, whisked them together, but you can use a hand mixer, and now I'm in the process of adding all my wet ingredients together, including squeezing the last bit of life out of this bottle of golden syrup. Once this is all in, I will go back in with my whisk and just combine them. Again, normally I do use a hand mixer, but it does tend to billow the dries. So using a whisk, you avoid that, and it gives you a bit of a workout. So you know that's good. So I always like to sort of smash my eggs when I go back in with my whisk, and then combine everything fully. And this is my actual speed. This is not sped up. I'm not this quick. I wish I was this quick, honestly. Can you imagine how many cakes I'd get through? But once that's done, I'm going to divide that into my tins. And as you can see, I've already greased them. I use my Trex recipe. Go check out my video on making homemade cake release out of Trex, which is vegetable shortening, oil and flour. It's a brilliant little recipe that you just coat the inside of your tins with using a pastry brush, and your cakes will not stick. It's phenomenal. So I'm just going to eke out an even amount of batter into each of these tins. As you can see on the screen, that comes out to about 450, a little bit over. If I was just using these tins, obviously you would just eke it out evenly into whatever tins you're using and then bake it. Now I baked that in the oven 160 for about 32 minutes. While that was going, I made some ganache. So I took my milk chocolate and put it in a bowl, heat-proof bowl, very important, and then I put that in the microwave until melted. And while that was cooling very slightly, I heated up my cream, which I'm going to add to my milk chocolate incrementally. I'm not going to add all of it at once. I don't want to make a very, very runny ganache, so I'm actually just going to add it bit by bit and then blend it all in. So as you can see, it's quite thick there, so I've come back in, added a bit more, and then I'm going to combine that with my hand mixer. You can go in with a stick blender. Lots of people do that. That's actually a really good way of making sure you don't get any chunks. You can just honestly do it with a spoon, with a whisk, with a whatever, but this is the sort of consistency I wanted for my filling. Right, so while that's going, I'm going to melt these candy melts. You could use tempered chocolate for this instead. What you don't want to do is just melt regular chocolate and do this, because when you go to handle it, it will start melting in your hands. The heat of your fingers will melt it. So use tempered chocolate or candy melts. So once that's melted, I've just put a piece of baking parchment on a board, and I'm just going to use a palette knife to spread that out. Now you want to leave the bottom part of what will become your shards thicker, so that there's more to support the shard when you push it into the cake. So thinner at the top, thicker at the bottom, and then I'm just going to basically jostle it a little bit, work out some of those creases, and then pop that into the fridge until I need it, until it's nice and solid. So now it's time to stack my cake. I've attached this to my board with a little bit of buttercream, the recipe for which is on screen right now. Now I'm going to use my ganache as a filling, but I'm going to use my buttercream as a dam because I just want to essentially treat it like a jam. This will probably set quite well, but in the interest of speeding the process along, filling the cake while it's still quite wet and soft, just using a dam, it expedites the process. So I'm going to do that. So I do a dam, fill it with ganache, put another layer of cake on top, do a dam, fill a ganache. You know, you get the picture, it goes on like that. So the best way I've found to stack a cake is flat layer on the bottom, fill, and then it doesn't matter which way up your middle layer is. You can do dome side up, dome side down, doesn't matter. But your top layer, you want dome side down to give you, again, a nice flat layer on the top. So you want flat layer on the bottom, flat layer on the top, and that will give your cake the most stability. Right, so this is about to go into the freezer to set, and I actually take a couple of cake pop sticks, longer than my cake is tall, insert them into the cake, and that will hold it secure while it's in the freezer. Now I do apologise for this camera angle. My kitchen is so dinky and the lighting is so appalling. I have yet to discover a decent angle to film this process from. So if you see movement in the background, it's either my husband or a cat, neither of which are allowed in my kitchen while I am baking. They know this, they stay out, but this is essentially me doing a crumb coat. Now, if you're familiar with decorating cakes at all, a crumb coat, see, that's my husband, go away. If you're familiar with decorating cakes at all, you'll know that a crumb coat is completely necessary to essentially lock those crumbs in, especially with something like this chocolate cake, which is quite a crumbly cake. If you were to use this as your outer layer, you'd probably get crumbs, you'd probably get instability. You kind of want to create a shell of buttercream that you can chill and then put a nice clean layer on top of. So this is me just smoothing it out, smoothing the top. This will go back into the fridge for probably half an hour or so until it's firm, and then I will put the final layer on top. So you don't need to worry about, you know, bits of crumb showing through. That doesn't matter at this stage. Now this stage is your final coat layer. So this is the layer when you want to make sure that your buttercream has no imperfections in it, no crumbs, no lumps of butter that haven't been mixed in, no lumps of icing sugar that haven't been mixed in. You want to make it as smooth and as nice as possible. You can do that in a myriad of ways. This is just American buttercream, so it's the simplest buttercream I make. I use it for everything. And you can smooth it quite nicely with a heated scraper. So what I'm using at the moment is my scraper, but and it's a metal one. So if I were to heat that up and then scrape the exterior of the cake, it would melt the buttercream slightly and lead to a nice smooth finish. But I didn't think it necessary for this one because it left quite a nice exterior anyway. So that goes back into the fridge to chill, and then once that's done and I've cleaned up my board, I'm going to put my drip ganache on top. Now this is a slightly different recipe than the filling ganache. So with this one, I took 200 grams of the same milk chocolate, but boiled a kettle and added that boiled water to my melted chocolate incrementally until it got to the consistency that you can see on screen now. Now I do this very much by feel, so I couldn't tell you exactly how much boiling water to add to it. I basically do a splash, mix it, it will seize quite firmly, another splash, mix it, okay, it's starting to loosen, another splash, okay, it's nice and runny. You start at the back of your cake and put a splash of drip on and see how it runs. You can see if it's the right consistency. You know, you want to let it run down the side, but you don't want it to run off the cake. You don't want it to be so thin that it's like water. And essentially you just go round and round the cake, doing the drip until, like this, it's completely covered. Right, so now it's time to prepare the chocolate shards. I'm going to come in with a knife and create a nice sharp solid line at the bottom. I'm just going to cut that off. Probably don't need to, probably could have just snapped it, but I thought I would try basically doing it from there. You could probably cut the chocolate into nice shards, but again, I picked it up and it broke, so I thought, sod it, I'll just break the rest of it. So there I go, I just break it into shards of chocolate, and trying to make them fairly aesthetic so that I can come back in and insert them into the cake. Now with the first one you don't see, but you do with the second. I have actually cut a slit into the top of the cake that I can insert the shard into. So here I am, just seeing where I would like to put the second one. You know, upside this way round, that way round. Does it look better back there? Does it look better over here? Does it look better this way round? Okay, yep. So I've taken my sharp knife and I'm just going to plunge that into the cake just to create enough of a gap for that that shard to basically sit in. If you were to just sort of sit it on top, it would fall over. Obviously, the laws of gravity don't care for that sort of thing. So this is just really a way of making sure that it stays upright on your cake. And yeah, I basically go through, pick some of the nicest shards, and create kind of a aesthetically pleasing arrangement using my knife when and where to create little gaps for them to sit in. Now you've missed me putting these little blobs on, but I basically just fitted a piping bag with a nozzle and then piped a few little blobs. There's some behind the shards as well, which you'll actually spot later on. And I did that so that the shards had a little bit of support behind them. So as well as sitting in the cake, they've also got something behind them, so they won't be tempted to fall backwards. And I'm going to go around now with a selection of chocolates. So these are some Lindors, some fudge, some Maltesers, some buttons, all sorts of chocolates. And I'm just going to go around and arrange them in an arrangement that I think looks nice. So, you know, lean them up here, place them over there. Does it look nice if I lean it against this? You know, you really want to build it up so that it's full, but not like you've just dumped a bag of chocolate on top. So I am going to go around and arrange these rather than just sort of chuck it at the cake. So the chocolates that I'm using are just basically the ones that I had on hand. You can use literally anything. I've done it before where I've used half an Easter egg and filled that, or a cream egg or a Kinder egg or something, and you can use anything really. It's brilliant. These are literally an opportunity to cover the cake with your favourite chocolates. And as you can see, I have come back in with my piping bag just to add a little bit of extra piping here and there, either for stability or for something to attach extra chocolates to in a moment. So the ganache is a little bit tacky on top, the drip, but it's not wet. So the buttercream really creates something for these chocolates to stick to. And I'm just going to go around, add my last few bits of chocolate, figure out where I think these Maltesers look good, and then once that's done, I'm going to come in with some chocolate sprinkles and basically cover the cake in these. Again, in a hopefully what I hope is an aesthetically pleasing way. You know, again, I don't want to just chuck them at the thing, but I do want them to stick to the ganache, to the piped buttercream. And then I'm going to come back in with some edible gold leaf, and basically I'm going to sparsely attach this to very certain chocolates on the cake. I don't want everything to be covered in gold, but I do want there to be enough of a gold glimmer so that the cake has a little bit of extra. I really like adding edible gold to chocolate cakes, to caramel cakes, to whatever cake that I can get away with, frankly. I think it looks really good. It's really easy. You don't taste it. You know, I never put on enough that you could taste it or feel it or anything, and honestly it disintegrates into nothing anyway. But you just use a soft brush and you just sort of apply it to the cake, and yeah, it just adds a little bit of something extra. Sometimes I'll apply it to the buttercream on the front of the cake, but I didn't do that with this one. I quite liked the nice clean profile of the front, and that's it with just a bit of gold. So yeah, that's it for this one. As you can see, I did go in later and attach a gold ribbon around the bottom, and then piped a little message for the birthday boy. And then yes, that's essentially how I did it, how I made this chocolate cake. So I hope you learned a couple of things. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I am a newish channel, so any likes, any subscriptions, any comments are very much appreciated. I will catch you in the next one. See you soon.